Hey, this is Shaun from Scinan, and today we are at Exile Audio Labs laying down some drum tracks. We've got a pretty unique workflow and some pretty strange techniques we're using. The workflow we're doing is a mix of some traditional techniques with some modern digital techniques and some strange little tricks along the way. So I'm going to walk you through the workflow and show you how we set up, how we get everything ready, and what our process is here at Exile Audio Labs. Before I head into the drum room, I make sure everything on the computer is set up properly so that I don't have to worry about it while I'm recording the drum tracks. First, I export loops of some of the main sections that I'm going to be working along with. The song I'm going to be recording has 9 main sections. There's other variations within those parts, but for the purpose of recording the drum tracks, I'm going to be playing along with these 9 loops. For each looped section, I prepare a file in the digital audio workstation by inserting the loop and also setting 2 channels to record for the 2 overhead microphones that I'm going to be using. I'm not going to record full songs. I don't want the drums to sound the same through the whole song. I want the sounds to change. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be recording individual drum beats, individual drum fills, different parts of the song to effectively make my own drum sections or drum loops or drum parts. Now, on top of those that are played with the full kit, I'm also going to be doing some separately mic'd parts where I'm just doing some individual samples. I'm going to go through, I'm going to sample every part of the kit as it sits in the kit. So if the cymbal is over here, I'm going to leave the mic where it is and record the sample there. If I'm hitting a cymbal over here, I'm not going to move the mic over to it for the sample. I'm going to keep the mics the way they are on the whole drum set so that everything sonically, in the way it's reflecting off of the walls and in the spatialness of the stereo recording, is going to sound like it's coming from that space in the stereo field. In addition to that, I'm also going to be doing close miking where I move the mic closer, record the samples and the parts separately. This way I can move in and out of space. I can have a snare drum that sounds distant from the other side of the room, and then I can zoom in on the snare and have a closer sound on the snare. This will hopefully, if it works right, pull the drums back and forth between their location in the sonic space, depending on where they need to be in the recording. So fundamentally, when it goes on to the record, it's going to have a full kit mic'd. It's going to have sampled sections from a distance, sampled sections up close, as well as any electronic drums or samples that I need. And the song is not going to be played continuously from beginning to end on drums. It's going to be in pieces so that the sound can be changed from this part to the next part more easily. And that way, I don't have a static sound for the whole recording. It keeps lively, it keeps changing. The next thing I do is head into the drum room and start taking the set apart so that I can make sure all of the drums are tuned and ready to go. Rototoms are really strange to tune because you have the tuners on the side, but you can also twist the drum to change the whole tone, which can create kind of a cool effect. Once the drums are ready, I reassemble the kit and make sure there's no parts touching or rattling. I also check the cymbals to make sure that they're seated properly. Once the drum kit is ready, I put the mics on the stands and move them into position. For this recording, I'm going to be using 2 small diaphragm Octava condenser microphones as overheads above the drum set. For a closer stereo sound, the mics can be placed near the center, but for a wider sound that I'm going for, I'm placing them towards the outside of the kit, facing downward to get the best view of all of the toms. And now the mics are set up and we're ready to begin recording. I've set up a laptop right next to the drum set so I don't have to get up and go anywhere to interfere with the flow of recording the drums. I just have to plug in the 2 microphones and the headset, and don't want to forget to turn on the phantom power, otherwise my microphones won't be recording anything. Once the mics are plugged in, I set the levels on the preamps by hitting the drums and turning the level up until it's as loud as it can get before it starts to clip. When I finish recording the main drum parts, I begin to sample each instrument on the set. For the close mic'd snare samples, I'm going to be using the same 2 Octava small diaphragm condensers that I had used previously for the overheads. For the close mic'd bass drum sampling, I'm going to be using my favorite bass drum mic, an AKG D112. I'm also going to be accompanying it with a Shure SM57 in case I need to bring some of the mid-range back into the mix. The trend in recording drums now is to cut holes in the head of the bass drum, either on the side of the bass drum or in the center of the bass drum. The reason a lot of people like to cut a hole in the bass drum is because they like to have the sharp attack and the click on the bass drum, and sometimes they mic the front side of the head too, or the batter side of the head. But I don't want to go for that sound on this recording. There's a certain mid-range oomph that comes when you leave the head intact without cutting the hole. And so what I'm doing is I'm using the AKG D112 to get the really low standard kick drum sound, and I'm using the SM57 to bring back a little bit of that sharper attack, but I'm doing it from the front side of the drum because I don't really want that click from the batter. It's trendy now in metal to go for these clicky bass drum sounds, and I've never been able to understand the clickiness of the bass drums. There's no real heaviness to a click. I mean, a click is a small little sound. I want my bass drum to sound big. Okay, now this is another unconventional technique that I've used sometimes to get some pretty cool effects out of the bass drum and some other instruments. And as far as I know, I'm the only one who's done this. I'm sure it has to have been done somewhere. I've just never seen it done. All my years working in studios with engineers, I've never seen anyone try it. I've never seen it on any production videos or anything. And what I'm doing is I've inverted a cymbal stand here with a crash cymbal on it, and I have 2 condenser microphones pointing at the bell. So when the bass drum goes, the cymbal will get a little bit of vibration, but even what is recorded from the bass drum is going to be passing through the cymbal, and it gets a pretty cool, unique sound. I'm not certain I'm going to use it in the song, but I'm going to record some samples and some parts this way in case I need them when it's time for the recording. For some of the drum parts, I'll work with them directly in the digital audio workstation, but for others, I have to do some extra processing. For the parts that are being sampled or looped, first I select the area that I need, and I take it from the multitrack into the waveform editor. I then crop it down to the correct size, cutting off any extra sound at the beginning or the end of the file. Once the file is ready, I import it into a sampler. This sampler here is the NNXT Advanced Sampler from Propellerhead's Reason. So that's the overview of our drum workflow. Thank you for watching. If you want to share any of your drum recording techniques, please post them in the comments below. Hit the subscribe button so you can check out the recording when it's done. Again, this is Shaun from Scinan. See you later.